You know what's even better than drinking a delicious International Delight iced coffee? Winning a brand new car to drink it in. Visit internationaldelightcarsweeps.com for rules and enter through November 10th for your chance to win a new car plus a year's supply of iced coffee. No purchase necessary. Year's worth of product awarded as product and coupons. Valued at $978.20. Open to legal residents of U.S. and D.C., excluding Alaska, Connecticut, New Jersey, Nevada, Hawaii, Tennessee, and Wisconsin, who are at least 18 and age of majority. Ends October 10, 2024. Sponsored by Danone US LLC. For official rules, visit internationaldelightcarsweeps.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe.
And I'm Jen.
We're co-hosts of Murder Made Fiction, a podcast that looks at fictionalized adaptations of true crime.
That's Murder Made Fiction wherever you get your podcasts.
And until then, let's leave the murder on the screen.
Slashers, huh? What's your favorite scary movie?
Not that one.
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's our sporadic queer horror movie roundup, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we are discussing writer-director Parker Brennan's anthology film, Hauntology.
Indeed, yeah. It's a fun title. It's a fun film, so I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I'll like, full confessions. Like, you know, we're acquaintances with Parker, and I always get a little nervous when someone we know makes a film, because I'm always so nervous I'm not going to like it. And I am happy to report that is not the case with this one. I thought this was quite charming.
Yeah, it's very cute. I mean, Parker sent us a lovely email saying that they wouldn't be bothered if we didn't like it and that they hoped we would do something with it. So, yeah, so we're always happy to check out work from colleagues. One of the things that I was surprised with is that they clarified that this film received an R rating. And
yeah.
I'm baffled because truly this feels like a perfect queer gateway horror film.
Yeah, I feel similarly, although, I mean, you know what scene it is that gets the R rating, right?
I was trying to think. It's
the throat slash in Paint in Black Lace, which is in full view of the camera.
Yeah, I guess. I truly am like, because I live in Canada, everything to me is like a 14A, so the R rating doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I know, but it's very much like, I don't think I've ever seen a PG-13 film that just shows the wounds like open up and the blood spill out. So
right.
And so the good news is that is an easy fix if they wanted to get a PG-13 rating, but I don't know. I feel like at this age of streaming, like ratings don't really matter unless you're going to the theater, right?
Truly. Yeah. So folks, our off-the-top recommendation is we would both recommend this. Mm-hmm. And even if you have like younger teenage viewers, listeners, whatever, I think that this is a totally suitable film.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a low budget, but I would argue it has like really good production values. Like they make the most of the little budget that they clearly have.
Indeed. Yeah. And if you're comfortable with independent films, this looks like it's coming in at the higher end of it. That, to me, is not the kind of sticking point in terms of the stuff where I go, oh, I wish we could have just done something a little different here.
No, yeah, absolutely. And what kind of looped me into this world and kind of sold it for me was, I'm going to say the sound design. Like, the sound design really, like, and just, like, simple things like Foley work or, like, the sound of insects in the forest, you know? It was an attention to detail that can sometimes, I feel, slip through the cracks in lower budget films. So, just worked for me.
Yeah, because you're racing against the time and you have limited budget. So Okay, well, why don't we quickly outline what this is in case folks don't know, because of course it's a tiny film. So this is an anthology, I'm going to say, in 4 stories and a wraparound.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Parker knows their shit because every single one of these entries is a play on another famous horror title. So we begin with Witchcraft Becomes Her, which is obviously a play on Death Becomes Her. Second story is The Day Mabel Came Out of the Grave, which is a play on The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave. 3 is Paint and Black Lace, which is Blood and Black Lace. Mm-hmm. And finally, the 4th story is The Old Dark Cashel House, which is a play on The Old Dark House or William Castle.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like with most anthologies, we're going to have our kind of like pick of the litter of what we like most and which one maybe works the least for us. But maybe we start with kind of the wraparound story?
Okay, sure. So the wraparound concerns 2 sisters. We've got Venus Price, who is played by Jaden Triplett, as well as their older sister Jasmine, played by Samantha Russell. And we learned right off the bat that Venus is running away from home because of a fight with their parents.
Yes, absolutely. And Jasmine just happens to be driving by for reasons we will discover later.
Yes.
And picks her up and basically says, oh, you know, you really shouldn't leave home. Like, you should give mom and dad another chance. I'll make you a deal. Let me tell you these 4 spooky stories that are from around town, and if you don't get scared, then you can leave. But if you do, you have to stay home.
Yeah. And it's a great, simple idea, right? Like, I'll drive you around so we get to see different locations. You know, there's a graveyard, there's a spooky house, all those good staples of horror. And we get to learn more about the sisterly relationship and the fact that both sisters identify themselves as not quite normal, like they don't quite fit in with the family and so on. And I'm going to say, Trace, this is one of my favorite things is I said it off the top, but this anthology is super fucking queer. So like every single story is about queerness. It has a plethora of queer characters, different types of representation. And I love that the sort of inciting incident, and it's never really explicitly stated, it seems very clear that both of these sisters identify as a little bit queer.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't clear to me immediately off the bat, but I mean, I think by the time we finished the first story, I was like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing here. But yeah, okay, well, so before we go into like the specifics of each story, we've talked about what we generally like about the film, Joe, but what didn't work for you in this film?
So one of the things that I have a tendency to struggle with anthologies, and you kind of just cued me to this, is some of the stories work a little bit better than others. But I also often find that because we're trying to pack in a number of different stories, some of them just don't feel as developed as others. So I have my favorites. I have ones that I like a little bit less, but also the ones that I really like, I often tend to want more of. So I found that I didn't dislike any of the stories. Some of them definitely work better than others for me. But the ones that I really liked, I was just like, ugh, I wish we didn't have 4 stories on the wraparound, like maybe only 3 stories. And then we could have given everybody a little bit more time to shine.
I thought the exact same thing. Like maybe do a little bit of trilogy of terror and not quadrilogy of whatever. Quadrilogy of I can't think of an alliteration with a Q. But no, I agree with you. And because I think the ones I like the most are the longer ones, which is interesting because I have definitely had similar complaints about, I don't know, like a VHS movie where I'm like, oh, why is this story 50 minutes long?
Yeah, there's something about a sweet spot with an anthology. And if we talk to creatives about it, they would say, well, it's being driven or dictated by the demands of the story. Like sometimes I'm just looking for a little bit of a sweet spot. So maybe it's only 5 minutes, but deliberately so. And as I said, I don't think any of the stories are bad here, but the ones that I like the least do tend to be the shortest. And it's just because I feel like I barely get a taste for the characters or where the story is going. And then we've got to move on. Yeah,
then it's over. Which actually, well, that's a good segue into the first story, Witchcraft Becomes Her, which is, I really like the concept of this one, but this did wind up being my least favorite of the 4 because I thought the climax was very anticlimactic.
Yeah, so this one is a trans woman who has not transitioned, has to run away from home. So we're drawing a lot of parallels to the main wraparound. And she meets up with a witch who tells her how to perform a ceremony where she makes a bit of a pledge with a demon on a full moon. And if she doesn't open her eyes when she wakes up in the morning, she will be transitioned over. And this story benefits from having out trans actress Zoe Luna, who is like, I've gathered, a social media superstar. She's got like 1 million followers.
All right, so we're too old is what you're saying.
A little bit. I was just like, I feel like I should know her, and I don't. But it's very fun to see her come alive in her preferred form. And like, she's trying on clothes, she's throwing up boy clothes and all this other stuff. And it feels like it's going to lead to something really good, but it's basically just the demon is like, hey, you know, you reneged on our deal because you opened up your eyes and now I'm going to burst in. And you think it's really going to get going, and then it's just done.
Yeah, the more interesting aspect of this story was less so like this demon or spirit that is helping Julian transition, and more so the relationship between Julian and the witch Annalisa, who is played by American Horror Story Asylum's Naomi Grossman, by the way.
Oh, I love this performance.
I know.
What a kooky old lady.
She's like a dead ringer for Veronica Cartwright for me. Like,
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
But no, so they have like really good conversations. So I was kind of like, this works better for me as like a drama between two friends without the horror conflict. Like, I could have just taken a scene, a full short of them just sitting at the table and talking about what's going on.
Right.
But then we kind of get into this thing where it's like, oh, like, you know, you opened your eyes during the ritual and you can't do that. And so it kind of promises this threat that is dispatched a little too easily for me. But maybe that's the point.
Maybe. I mean, as I said, I do think that this is pretty firmly gateway horror, so none of them go quite as hard as I might expect. Like, I'm not surprised to see on our prep sheet that you and I both prefer one story, and I would argue that it has the most consistent use of, I'm going to say, gently adult horror.
Yeah, I mean, and it should come as no surprise that's the one that earns the R rating.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a good start. A bunch of this does come back because elements of this ritual or the ceremony ends up coming back in the wraparound. Like, I will say, I think Brennan is very clever in how each of the different installments contributes to something that the sisters will have to do in the final bit of the film.
Yes, and that's actually another thing too, because in so many anthologies, the wraparound is where the film fails for me. Like, it doesn't do enough to tie everything together, and for the most part, this one does.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so our second story is The Day Mabel Came Out of the Grave. This was the one that I didn't like as much. And again, it's just because it's too brief. So we're talking about a relationship between two women. I think that they're meant to be married. So we've got Jade, who is played by Abigail as Mina, as well as Iris, who is played by Aubrey Bowen. And they're having some extreme conflict in their relationship. And I think the problem is I didn't understand where the sticking point was. So they're at this cottage, and frankly, Iris is being a huge fucking bitch this whole time. And because I don't understand why, like, obviously I'm relating to Jade because Jade seems honestly just kind of chill and she seems to love her partner. And I was like, I don't understand what Iris's deal is. But anyway, Jade ends up falling in love with Mabel, who was a Black woman who was killed in a frankly racist historical attack. And
well, racist and homophobic historical attack.
Yeah. And that's actually the other kind of big selling point of this anthology, is that we have huge representation of both, queerness, but also, I would argue, Black women in general are the stars of this film. And if we have a man, he either sucks, he doesn't matter, or both.
Yeah, unless he's gay. Actually, no, even in that case, even that third story. But
yeah, even the gays kind of suck.
I will say, because both of us were a little confused because, as we said, all the titles of these shorts are referencing other horror films. And this is the one that neither one of us fully knew what it was referencing. And I looked it up, and it does, so it references a 1971 Italian Gothic giallo film, The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave. And I think that use of Gothic is kind of what made me warm to this one a little bit more. I agree with you actually about all of this, but it felt like, I remember Oz Perkins's I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, where it's like, it very much reminded me of that, where it's like, okay, we're going for the vibe and the ghostiness here, like that gothic, like cinematic feel. And so the story was a bit slighter to me, but I think it's because the mood is supposed to kind of supersede that. Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I will say there's some really striking images. Like there's a moment where Mabel, who is played by Jacinta Forbes, slowly walks out of this lake onto the shore. And I was just like, oh, that is really striking, like very evocative.
Yeah, very much. And so, I mean, you could argue this is maybe a case of style over substance. But for the most part, I really liked the character of Jade too.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get a ton of Iris in this because she's kind of the antagonist of this story.
Yeah.
I did like the ending, though, because, I mean, basically it's just like, it felt like the ending of an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode.
A little bit. And speaking of actually very effective, kind of scary, tense moments, there's this part where Iris discovers this hole in the ground and, you know, she's not paying attention to it because she doesn't care because she's a bit of a know-it-all. And we just see Mabel come up behind her, grab her around the waist and pull her into this hole. And it's a good moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually a little disappointed that Iris winds up walking out of the hole alive at the end. But I guess that's kind of our give and take with, we kind of have this tragedy. But, you know, at least Iris is alive.
Right. And we're not really killing many queers.
Not in this one.
Not in this one. Yeah.
But that brings us to Paint in Black Lace, our opportunistic gay men.
Yeah, so this is a pair of gay men. So we've got Owen, who is played by Aaron Turnbull, as well as Shane, who is played by Kurt Oberhaus, and they own an art gallery. And what we discover immediately, there's no pretense, we just get right into this, is that they moved into this house and they discovered a painting from a famous dead painter named May Fellner, who is played by Kim Lee Mays. And when they discover one, they say, ooh, we should create a bunch of forgeries and then sell them on the market, like flood it out like that. Which is interesting because this reminded me a little bit of that terrible Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
Oh, Velvet Buzzsaw.
Velvet Buzzsaw.
Buzzcut Chainsaw.
Oh my God. The best thing about it was the title, and even that we can't get right. Folks, we got a Patreon on it. It's a nonsense film.
It's not a good movie. But yeah, this gallery I loved called Roy G. Biv, which I was really upset that one of them wasn't called Roy to like make that like just really sing. I kept thinking one of them was called Roy, which made it really confusing when the real estate agent they had that sold them the house was called Ryan.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have this gallery opening, and this strange woman shows up. And Joe, I gotta tell you, did you recognize this woman?
I did not, but she is striking. I feel like we even get a little bit of slow motion when she walks in, heels, gown, just absolute diva.
So I did not recognize her look, but as soon as she started speaking, I was like, I know that voice. And this is Samantha Robinson, aka the Love Witch from the titular Love Witch.
Oh, shit. Okay. That's a movie that I still want to love. I see other people praising all the time, and I cannot get behind that fucking director. She drives me bonkers.
Oh, see, I saw the movie before like that director did all that stuff, so I didn't have that clouding my mind. I really like it, but I've only seen it once. But anyway, but I love this actress. I just love the way she speaks. Clearly, basically, the gist of this movie is, y'all, the May Fellner's ghost possesses this Christina woman who used to be her
lover, but was like hesitant to identify as such.
I guess so, but yeah, so the ghost of May Fellner possesses the Love Witch lady, Samantha Robinson, and she goes off and just starts killing everyone involved with this gallery.
Yeah, basically it's like, hey, you're besmirching my name, you're trying to make a profit off of me, this is not my legacy. It is good stuff. And I can't help but wonder if it's because this is the most conventionally slasher entry that you and I both like it. But I also do feel like this is where the marriage of style and violence and then also the queerness and the acting, like it all comes together really well for me.
Well, and I did not actually time the length of all these stories, but I would assume the first two were about 20 minutes in length, whereas these last two seem like they're closer to 30 minutes in length. And I think that does go a long way in this case.
Yeah.
There's just more time to get to know these characters, even though our leads in this particular one are kind of jerks and they get what's coming to them.
Yes, they do not make it out of this alive, but overall, this is just like a very fun one. And I think it hits at exactly the right point in the anthology, because the first two I'm like, okay, I'm kind of liking this. There's some stuff that I don't love about it. And then this one comes in and just absolutely nailed it for me.
Yeah, this is the one where I was kind of like, okay, I'm fully on board with this movie now.
Yeah. Okay, so we move into the fourth one, which is the Old Dark Cashel House. And this is a fun one where we've got a reporter who wants to do a piece on this famous haunted house, which has been in an older lady's family for generations. This reporter is very doubtful about the supernatural effects, but she is invited to stay overnight. And of course, she's told, do not use contemporary technology in this house because bad things will befall you.
Yeah, it was really nice to see Halloween's Nancy Loomis as the Mrs. Cashel in this, because I don't think she's acted in like decades, and if she has, it's been
it was a big get for Parker, because I know when they were starting to do the press tour, this was kind of one of the big selling features is, hey, you haven't seen this iconic actress in forever, and here she is in the film.
Yeah, and this is also where we kind of start to tie in the other stories, because I don't know if you caught this, but there is a portrait of Julian from Witchcraft Becomes Her on Mrs. Cashel's like nightstand or desk or something.
So this is the house that Julian has run away from.
Yes, and then of course we learn that it is Mrs. Cashel's, great-great-great-grandfather, whatever the fuck, who's the one that killed Mabel and the day Mabel came out of the grave.
Yeah, so that would be William, played by James DeForest Parker, and he will come back in the wraparound as well.
Yes, but no, this was actually very fun. Again, this also felt very like kind of gothic horror to me, because we have a woman walking around a creepy house, and of course this ghost. I thought for sure she was going to get killed, but she does not. She just gets spooked away.
Yeah, it's a bit of an easy out, and I think this could have been ramped up a little bit in the finale, and we could have done terrible things to this woman. I was kind of glad that we don't, because even though she is a bit of a doubting Thomas, I ended up really coming to like the character.
I did too, absolutely. I did think it was interesting, though, that we have the quote reference to Death Becomes Her with now a warning in this one, and not the one that was actually called Witchcraft Becomes Her.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a funny term. But again, I think so much of the anthology is speaking to itself in other parts, so it feels like it's connecting back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I thought this was a cute little one. And some really good lighting in these basement scenes, too. Yeah,
that basement is super creepy. And we should note, because I don't think I mentioned, so the reporter is Madeline Ishii, played by Lindsay McDowell. And I think McDowell does a really good job of anchoring this. We don't know anything about this character apart from, like, they're on this assignment. They seem a little bit opportunistic themselves. So again, that tie back to Paint and Black Lace. And I don't know. I found the character surprisingly endearing, even though I don't know that was the intention.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I think she reads as just a rational person. Although, it's like, the one rule is don't use your phone. So don't use your phone.
and in her defense, she does try to go outside, but the doors have all been locked because, this ghost is a bit nefarious.
Yeah, but to be clear, they also just told her don't bring your phone. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so this brings into the conclusion of the film and the conclusion of the wraparound where, so basically Jazz is talking to Venus, and basically it's revealed that Jazz has also seen this ghostly man, William. And of course, we learned in that last story, once William sees you, he will never stop coming after you or stop being with you.
Yeah.
So the two girls are going to work together to kind of banish him. And this worked okay for me. I admit this wasn't kind of the big bombastic ending I was hoping for, but it works well. I do like all the blood play we get during the ritual.
This is true, yeah. Especially at the end when they're just absolutely covered. It's like all of our favorite images from something like Abigail or Ready or Not or Evil Dead, where you're just like, oh, our heroine's completely soaked with blood.
Yeah, I will say, because it kind of ends on a bit of a joke where it's, because they're about to get in the car, they banish this ghost, and Jazz is telling Venus, do you still want to run away? And we get this line that I admit I kind of had a big eye roll over, where she's like, after tonight, I can handle anything, even mom and dad. And it felt a little bit...
it's a little pat.
Yeah, after school special type for me a little bit.
But I think that's why so much of this ends up feeling like gateway horror. I know I apologize, I've said it like a dozen times, but this feels like it's intended for people around Venus's age.
Yes.
And as a result, I could see them being like, oh, you know what? Maybe handling your parents isn't the worst thing in the world. Like, you could have to go through all the crap that the characters in this film went through.
Exactly. And that's why, I mean, again, like when we're talking about horror anthologies, I feel like people are going to like reference like Tales from the Crypt, but I said Are You Afraid of the Dark earlier because this does feel more like a YA aimed anthology film. So, and even in some of the, again, like that final line of dialogue feels like something that I would hear more in a Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that's meant for younger kids. Sorry, younger preteens.
There we go.
But no, this was overall though a success for me. I quite liked it. I'm tossing up between a 3 and a 3.5, but I enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. And I think one of the benefits of an anthology, I framed it as a bit of a weakness overall for the subgenre at the beginning. But one of the strengths of an anthology is that you could sit down, just watch one of these, and then take a brief pause. So it does work like a series of shorts, but they obviously all link together to form a pretty nice feature as well.
Absolutely. But yeah, everyone, go check out the film. Let us know what you thought of it. But until next time, we can cross out Hauntology.
Indeed. And cross out microqueers.